Are we ready? I think it's time.
Yes, it's recording right now. Let's go.
All right. Well, hi, everybody. Welcome to our Wind Down Wednesday. I think we'll give a cheers to start wherever you are. Welcome.
Cheers.
All right. So this week we're pretty excited. We have a wonderful panel of guests, and we're going to talk about the evaluation in Ayres Sensory Integration. So should we go ahead and introduce our guests?
I think that's a good way to start. I just want to say I am just feel like so much emotion about this session. The EASI has been such a long-term project. We're going to share a little bit more about the project after we hear from the panelists, but I know that we have a lot of participants who've been helping, and our group here have been so instrumental. So I just want to start by saying thank you to everyone who's been contributing to this amazing project. So yes, let's just, if we can have a quick introduction of the panelists, and then we'll
so Stephen, do you want to say hello? And
hello. Hello.
There's Stephen Chen. He's the owner of Crest Child Rehabilitation and Education Service Team. He teaches professional training courses in a variety of areas, including sensory integration, Beckman, oral motor, attachment, dynamic maturational model, high five, writing, handwriting, a whole plethora of topics. He's the co-founder of Possible Technology, and this is a company dedicated to developing tools using technology to assist assessment and training. And that's all very interesting. Then we'll go on to Dr. O'Meary. Okay, Claudia, you want to say hello?
Hi, hello everyone. I hope everybody is safe and healthy. It's a pleasure to be here.
All right, so Claudia is a longtime friend. We met her when she was studying in the United States, and then she stayed and worked with us for many years. She's now the professor in the OT department at the Federal University of Paraná, and owner of a private practice and clinic in Curitiba, Brazil, Jimmy Sen. She has specialized in sensory integration, and she's gotten certified in every way you can in sensory integration. She has a book on autism, and she's also the co-founder of the Brazilian SI Association. All right, and she's also did a randomized clinical study that came out with incredible results that she's in the process of publishing. Let's not forget that. So congratulations.
Thank
All
you.
right, Nika, can you say hello?
Yes. Hello, everyone.
Okay. So from Pakistan, she's a senior lecturer and clinical fieldwork coordinator of BSOT program at the Institute of Physical Medicine and Rehabilitation, and head of Department of Cerebral Palsy Resource Center. And then there's a lot of letters. IPMRDUHS Karachi. What does that all mean? Is that?
Institute of Physical Medicine and Rehabilitation Center and Dow University of Health Sciences, Karachi.
Okay. All right, and she's been a hard worker. Did I interrupt you? It's okay. She's a hard worker. She established the Sensory Motor Facilitation Unit in the Department of Occupational Therapy to implement and explore the impact of an SI approach on cerebral palsy children in Pakistan. So welcome. All right, Anna Marie, can you say hello?
Hi, everybody from South Africa, and it's a privilege to be here. Looking forward to the webinar.
All right, so Dr. van Jaarsveld is also a longtime friend. We've collaborated for decades now, and she is now the professor in the, no, what did you say?
Senior lecturer.
Lecturer in the Department of OT at the University of the Free State, And she has held all manner of leadership positions in developing and teaching courses in sensory integration for the South African Sensory Integration Association, better known as EASI. All right, did we get everybody? Okay, so I'm going to turn it over to Zoe, and she's going to describe the EASI project a little bit more.
So thank you, Suzanne, and thank you to all of you. All of our panelists are leads for their countries, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that. Let me just share my screen here. Okay. All right, that working? Okay. So I just thought I'd start today's session just giving everyone a brief little update and overview. I imagine that there's a variety of awareness in participation in this project. I know we have other country leads who are with us as participants today. So I just wanted to give a little bit of an update. So I think most everyone knows that we have a new set of tests, the evaluation in Ayres Sensory Integration, the EASI. These are 20 tests that measure sensory perception, postural, ocular, bilateral motor integration, praxis, and sensory reactivity. We developed these tests, Dr. Suzanne Smith-Rowley and Dr. Diane Parham and myself worked together to develop the test with a very big team of expert reviewers. And then we pilot tested the test under the direction of Dr. Roseanne Schaff. And we have chosen the best items, the strongest items. We made sure they were statistically sound. And then we have been ready to start collecting data. So this is an update as of today. We have 1,800 testers enrolled in our data collection platform, which is called REDCap. So we have 1,800 testers who have completed training in the tests and are registered to enter data. We have just about 100 countries participating, which is what our goal was. And we really were off to a roaring start. We had, to date, we have 1,583 children tested and entered into the system. And then around March, we came to a bit of a screeching halt with the pandemic. Marco, I don't know if you can comment on this. Marco sent me this picture, and Marco, can you just explain a little bit about what it is? Because I think it's showing where we have people interacting. Is that right?
Exactly. Yeah, it's where people, active testers from all over the world, right? So where people log into REDCap to input some data.
Yeah, so you can see we have good representation. We have some areas that, we have some countries that are involved and registered that were not able to enter data prior to the pandemic. So we hope that we'll be able to fill in some of those gaps, but we're really happy with the representation that we have. As I mentioned, we did have to pause. We've now set a new deadline for data collection. We're hoping to have enough data by the end of this year, December 31st, to at least begin some of these analyses. We are exploring options. One of the questions that we received prior to the webinar today was, can we talk about what we have found so far? And we cannot yet, but we are going to explore if there's some way to use the data that we have so that we can start using the test. And continue to add to the normative data as we go. We're not sure yet, so we'll have to keep everyone posted on that. I thought there could be some people listening who maybe are still interested in joining. Some countries, many of the countries would probably welcome additional testers. With the long drawn out process, life happens, not all the testers have been able to stay engaged. So some countries still could use testers, and since we still have another 6 months, if anyone's interested, you can email me directly and then I'll connect you with the lead for your country. and this might be a good time to say that we have amazing leaders for each of the countries involved. As I said, our panelists are all leads for their countries, and we have quite a few others, I think, joining us today. And these people have really just given so much of their time to this project. We also have region leads. We have 20 region leads. Stephen is actually a region lead, so is Claudia. And they have also been instrumental in coordinating countries within their parts of the world. So just a little bit about how the EASI will be available. People have had some questions about this. We're calling this an open access set of tests, which means that they're not owned by a publisher. Although Suzanne, Diane, and I hold the copyright, the tests, we believe that the tests belong to the ASI community. They'll be made available to professionals who have completed training. We're working with the new organization, the International Council for Education in Ayres Sensory Integration, who is developing the standards for this. So our plan right now is that the professionals who complete appropriate training will be given access to the tests, which will include the test sheets and the forms, the manual, as well as the scoring. We're working on a scoring program that will be online. And all of the test materials then can be gathered and produced on an individual basis. That is, testers can print their own test sheets, purchase the materials, which will include some 3D printed shapes that are used for the tactile test. And in addition to the EASI, we also have developed the Family Life Impact Questionnaire, the FLIC. This is a participation measure. We're excited about this. We're looking forward to being able to have a measure that compares some of the sensory integration challenges and their impact on families' daily life routines and social integration. And we're collecting normative data on this instrument at the same time. And both the FLIC and the EASI, we currently have in 14 different languages. We may end up with more, but we do want this measured, both of these measures, to be representative of our international community. You saw on the first slide that we have the theme Children Understood. That's really been our goal, to make sure that everyone stays focused on the heart of this project, which is really about ensuring that children worldwide can be more fully understood so that we can help them in a more specific, individualized way. So I think that's all I have on slides. I just wanted to give that little update and overview before we go to our panelists. So I don't know, Suzanne, did you want to add anything to that? Or?
Well, it's just been such a privilege to be part of this process, and, you know, kind of a dream come true to see the data, the preliminary data on the pilot testing, and also to start the normative data collection. It's been so fun, and, you know, the kids are having fun with the items. The therapists are struggling a bit with, you know, learning. This is keeping, you know, keeping us fresh. But in the end, I think we will end up with a tool that is very sensitive, that it's informative, and very clinically useful, with a more modern means by which to transmit the information and get the data. So I'm just so excited, and Zoe's been driving the train, and often you're on the fast train. So I just appreciate so much that you've kept everything going, and while we have this amazing group of guests, there are so many people who have contributed and have poured their heart and soul into this, and I just am enormously grateful. So that's all.
Well, thank you, Suzanne. And you know, I think we should mention that we see the EASI as part of an evolution of assessment that's been a core in the history of Ayres Sensory Integration. Dr. Ayres always put a lot of emphasis on assessment. Some of her earliest work was in developing tests. And I know this might be a good time to go to Anna Marie, because Anna Marie, you've been really instrumental in bringing SIP, the training in the SIP, to South Africa. I thought maybe you can share a little bit about that. I know people have a lot of, there's always a lot of anxiety when there's a change. I remember all the anxiety that occurred when we were going through the change from the Southern California sensory integration test to the sensory integration and praxis test. And I think it is both. It is a challenging time that, you know, brings up some anxiety for people. Change is always a little challenging, but it's also brings some new opportunities. But I wondered if you might just talk about how, you know, that process and how bringing that training and the assessment procedures, how you saw that having a role in Africa.
Yes, thank you, Zoe. Yeah, we started using the SCISIT in 1980s, 1980s in South Africa. And then Suzanne and yourself was instrumental in helping us to convert to the SIPT in 2006-07. We started using the SIPT. Yes, and it is a process, but it's a good process, because with each new test, there's new things, there's new knowledge, and that's an exciting process. So people are keeping on board with the latest developments, and so it was generally a very positive process, converting from the SCISIT to the SIPT. And I think we are starting to experiencing exactly the same now with the EASI, because our data collectors are trained, and now the other people are getting excited to ask, but when can they start training with the EASI? They want to get on board as well. So for us in South Africa, it's been a positive process to do the conversions, and we're excited about the new conversion process to the EASI as well. I think what is also for us very important in terms of converting to the EASI and to a test that would be accessible for all, is the fact that currently only about 40% of children in South Africa have access to gold standard assessment tool like the SIPT, whereas the EASI will now open up. So as you have rightly say, that all children can be understood, because we don't know, about 60% of our population, we don't know how they're going to perform on the EASI. So I think that's a box that we are very eager and very excited to open up and to really understand our children from low socioeconomic settings as well.
Yeah, I think we really need to acknowledge Anna Marie and South Africa. They are one of the few countries, I think we have about 3 countries who have actually met their target in the goals. So they have tested already 300 children in South Africa. That was what it was the other day. Maybe you're even over 300 now. And I think that's even above the original goal that you had. So we set goals for each country based on population. And I just am amazed that not only, you know, did you reach the goal, but you reached the goal in spite of a pandemic. And I wonder if you might just talk about how did you activate the testers in that way to accomplish that? It's just amazing.
Thank you, Zoe. I must just first say that if it wasn't for SAISI, the South African Institute for Sensory Integration, I don't think this would have happened, because we've got about 900 members, and a large number of them are qualified in using the SIPT. So we've just used our members. We had enough members that raised their hands to come on board with the data collection. So that helped a lot. We're an organization that has a lot of communication with our members. So my hat's off to all our members as well who came on board. That helped a lot for us. And I think also because the people were SIP trained, it was very easy to convert to the EASI. Well, not easy, but I think it went fairly smoothly. So the people did the training and did the scoring checks. And yes, everybody just came to the table yeah, I myself are amazed. I had 4 province coordinators that also assisted in the 4 provinces that we are using. And we are having a representative sample of children in South Africa. So our sample will be representative of our children population in South Africa. And then I need to acknowledge Elsa Geiser, who's a PhD student, also working on the EASI, because her data collectors also contributed to the pool of children that we have. And that's why we have more than the 250 that was our target.
That's so great. And yeah, maybe we can, after we talk with the other panelists, maybe we can come back and talk a little bit about those PhD projects, because that's been another really great offshoot of the data collection. But thank you so much. And I really think that the South African effort is going to be instrumental, because since you do have such a large sample and it is representative, and we know that from your previous studies with the SIP that there was a lot of continuity between the US sample and the South African samples, that I think we may be depending quite a bit on that data for our first rounds of interpretation. So the world owes you and all the people and the therapists in South Africa who've done so much on this project. So thank you. So maybe we can go to Stephen. One of the things we hoped you might talk about, Stephen, as the region lead for Asia. We actually have 2 parts of Asia, and I think probably everyone is aware of how large the percent of the population of the world resides in Asia. It's amazing. Did I say it's almost, I think I sent the percent in the question. Is it really almost 60%? Is that right?
Somewhere around, yeah. I think
60% of the world population is in Asia. I mean, it's just amazing. So I know you have a very large region to manage, and being hit first with the pandemic was a special challenge there. But I just wondered if you might talk a little bit about how you've seen sensory integration and occupational therapy be affected, how sensory integration has maybe affected the development of OT in some of the countries in Asia, and how this project is contributing to that.
Yes, sure. And the first, although I'm actually coordinating the 2 regions, but the country leader is actually doing a very great job. So the job is actually very easy for me, because the country lead is amazing. And when I got your questions about how this can help the population in Asia or in China, the first pictures that pop up in my mind is sensory integration in China, in Hong Kong, or in maybe some country in Asia. It's really a problem. Let me try to share screen with you to show you some pictures. I just try to do this. Yes, you all can see the pictures, right? Yeah, and these are the pictures of what is being called sensory integration in Asia, maybe China or some places in Asia. But obviously we know that this is not sensory integration. Yeah, doing a group with lots of babies, doing just the calling, using a ball to squeeze on the children, it is not SI. In our regions, actually we got 2 extremes. One part of it is people believe everything is sensory integration. You bring him to the group and sensory integration is good for everything, and they just play the game. And sometimes the child is, and actually quite often the child is not really enjoying it, and they're just being forced to do. And in Hong Kong, there's a place very famous in doing army training like exercise. They call it sensory integration. And another extreme is they don't believe in sensory integration. They think it is just psychological issues. They think it is something that doesn't exist at all. This another extreme. And we think that the things why it happens is because we don't really have the assessment done properly. Most of them, we may be using questionnaires, or we may be using gross motor or fine motor assessment, or maybe sometimes even just using some sensory, not sensory, reflex integration assessment, and to determine the child have sensory integration issues, which is actually not quite convincing to medical professionals or those we really focus on the data, what objectives findings with. They don't convince that. And for the parents, if we are just doing those things, or even we don't have assessment, is somehow it's like that everybody can do it. It's no, they don't really need to, especially for the questionnaire, they don't need to get trained in order to do those assessments. So, and part of the reasons why that is because the assessment seems not very accessible in the population in China, and for those have those financial issues, they can't really do the assessment. But now the EASI is really a new hope. I found that the budget for getting an EASI is not any higher than getting the questionnaire, actually. It's somehow, yeah, and this is easily accessible. And we don't have much excuse of not doing assessment. And with the assessment, I think we can have the proof that OTs maybe, and also SI trained therapists should be the one that to determine whether the child have sensory integration issues, and also to do the proper Ayres sensory integration assessment. And I found that when I'm doing the EASI, and I found that assessment actually is very fun. The children actually have a lot of fun in building the rooms, in playing around. And also when we are doing those clinical observation tests, and we now can have the hope that we can have more objective data about what we are observing, and we can have standardization and normative data for all over the world. And also the reactivity part is also a very important issue. So I think this EASI will help a lot to put sensory integration back to a more systematic, and can help the children that's with the sensory integration list. Yeah, so that's my perspective. Yeah.
Thank you. I don't know if you could see, Stephen, but there were quite a few comments from all parts of the world sharing that they have similar experiences, similar challenges. So I think, you know, Suzanne and I travel, we hear these stories, and it's been a big part of what's motivated and kept us going with this project. You know, not that the project has been easy. We do hope to make the test as easy as possible once they're mastered, but it's just so necessary in order to really conduct credible and meaningful intervention.
And you know, Stephen, I really appreciate you showing us what people have interpreted as sensory integration, because I think that happens everywhere in the world. It's not unique to your area of influence. And I think that that's those of us who have spent years studying this information, we find that it just lacks nuance. And I think that you said that. So when we have these assessments more accessible, I think then we may be better able to communicate the nuance that we're seeing in sensory integration, because certainly sensory motor activities are beneficial for every child, and probably for adults too. But that's different than what we're talking about in ascertaining a very specific set of concerns that then have a specific set of intervention activities attached that will support that child. So anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you, Stephen. Claudia, I wonder if we might come to you now. One of the really important parts of the EASI development has been translation. And of course, Brazil is a very large country. We have a big goal for Brazil, and you share the Portuguese language with our good friend Marco in Portugal and our friends from Portugal. But your region, as the region lead for South America, you have many Spanish-speaking countries, and the Spanish language team has been just so amazing. We have a paper that's been submitted and is in revision right now for the American Journal of Occupational Therapy under the leadership of Dr. Berta Gandera from Spain that presents the cultural adaptation process that was conducted in order to have a universal Spanish version of the EASI. And it's just so impressive what the team has done. I know we have some of our participants. I think the Argentina lead is with us in the group and today. So I just wondered if you might, you know, I think most of our other panelists are from parts of the world where English is commonly spoken, but you're from a part of the world where that's been a big issue, not having tests in the children's languages. And I wondered if you might talk a little bit about that.
Okay, thank you, Zoe. Well, I think it is a very challenging issue for us. Can you hear me? Because I'm having a Wi-Fi problem.
Yes.
Can you? Okay. And since Brazil is so big, we have 27 states. And as Zoe said, we don't speak English at all. We have
Uh-oh. Did she freeze for everyone? Claudia, we can't hear you. Yes. Okay. Well, what should we do? Shall we go on to another topic and come back to Claudia? Marco, do you want to talk a little bit about
Oh, yeah.
Oh, wait,
Here she is again.
Okay. Sorry. I think you froze, Claudia. You need to unmute again.
We are having so many rains here. Yesterday we have a really bad weather. Anyway, we had a really big challenge about to translate all the test and the manual and everything. But I think is a huge aspect for us to have almost, I think it's not the first, but is going to be the second test that we are going to have in a normative collect data for us. And then I think the OTs are very concerned and very interested in how to learn and how to apply a test that we can have a normative data. This is really interesting for us. And even that we feel that most of the occupational therapists here in Brazil are even trying to learn English because it's easier, but it's very important for us to have this test in our language and also in the normative way, even for the Spanish countries. And because we are going to test 1,000 kids, we yes, we need to do, we have to do a lot of efforts to translate everything. And we have a team, and also Rodrigo Massoqueto is doing a translation and cross adaptation culture to the EASI for the Brazilian Portuguese, no? And sometimes we try to exchange some translation to Portugal, but it's kind of a little, we have a little difference in some words. And what else? I think the OTs are very motivated to have this test here. And for sure is the same in Hong Kong. The theory, the framework of Ayres Sensory Integration is affecting in a positive way the occupational therapy here in Brazil. This is no question, is so important, and we are more well known, and we are really requested to treat the kids with the sensory issues. We are very happy about this.
And your work has been so instrumental, Claudia. I think, you know, we love watching the trajectory and seeing people like yourself and the group in Colombia and some of the other countries who were so clear thinking and brave about ensuring that your therapist had strong tools, and then watching how the access to those more scholarly methods has changed the profession. I think it's amazing when we come to Brazil and you have 100 people in a course and 100 people on a waiting list, and you know that there's so much interest, and then seeing that you've been able to complete the randomized control trial as part of your PhD. I mean, it's really just heartwarming, and I hope it's inspiring for people who are listening that, you know, one step at a time you make these changes, and then it snowballs and you see such a big effect.
Yes, yes. Well, actually, I am very persistent person. Since I had my first child, that I said, oh my gosh, I need a mentorship. And then I met the first time a person in Brazil that she taught me about sensory integration. And since that time, I'm studying a lot sensory integration. And even in Spanish countries, they need a lot of kids to test. In the whole South America, we need almost 2,000 kids, 1,000 here and 940 kids in the other countries. And it's an amazing project. I think everybody is so proud and honored to be inside of this huge project. We need to thank you all, Zoe, Suzanne, and Diane, and every international friends that we have.
Well, we want to thank you too. And I do want to just again mention the Spanish version, because I don't have my notes in front of me, but I think when I looked it up that maybe close to 50, is it true? There's 50% of the world is Spanish speaking. It's a very large percentage. And the project with the Spanish translation included Spain, Mexico, and several countries in South America. And they worked so hard to find the right way to convey so that it would be appropriate, so that we could have one Spanish version. And I know you're doing the same with Portuguese. We should just mention that the language for the children is not a huge part of the testing, but just to ensure that the idea of the test gets across to the child, and also that the tester really understands the purpose of the test and how to interpret. So all this translation effort has been really amazing. We have Chinese, and we know we have various versions of Chinese that will also affect a large portion of the world. So these efforts have been so important. So thank you so much.
Thank you. I want to thank you, Katia, also, because Katia is doing a lot of work here in Brazil and all the leaders in the other countries here in South America also. Thank you.
Yeah, Brazil is one of the big countries after some of the countries in Asia and the US are among the most populous.
Good to know.
And speaking of big countries, I think we'll go to Nighat. Nighat, we're so happy to have you as the country lead for Pakistan. We didn't even know if we could have Pakistan involved until we met you. And you might be a little bit, I'm not sure as many of our participants know you, but we just see you as an emerging leader who stepped forward, and Pakistan was able to test and enter data on 90 children prior to the pandemic. I mean, that's twice as many as the US has been able to enter. So we're just so amazed and impressed, and I wonder if you might talk a little bit about your journey, how you stepped forward and how you were able to activate people in a part of the world where this seems to be a little bit newer of a project.
Yes. First of all, thank you so much that I get opportunity to in this platform. And as a Pakistani, I must present here that in Pakistan, we all occupational therapists, majority of occupational therapists are very fond of doing Ayres Sensory Integration work, follow them. But we have lack of resources so that we can't reach them. And in 2018, in WFOT Congress, when I met with Zoe, so a lot of thanks to Zoe, and she offered me where I have been working on cerebral palsy children and the effect of cerebral sensory integration on cerebral palsy. And at that time, Zoe offered me that should I work with her on this project, and there is nothing to say no. We are very ready. We want that, yes, we want to contribute, give our contribution here, because from our education time, our study time, when I was in BSOT, and I read a lot of literature about ear sensory, but I'm unable to go anywhere and get this sensory integration certification. So luckily now in Pakistan, we have a few people who are from Dubai complete their sensory integration module in CLASI. And at the same time, I'm lucky also that we have Badr and Badr also doing class SIT certification from Dubai. And she also helped me a lot. And Zoe gave me a chance. She said that we will train you. She sent a lot of things, and most of the time I again and again email her that this thing I am not understand, and she taught me all the things. So it's very easy to understand the things. And in Hong Kong, when I went in that Congress, I met all of you, and I purchased oral and sense instrument from there, and as well as sensory integration clinical evidence-based book, which is written by Suzanne and I think Rosa, and maybe I pronounce wrong. It's Rosanne, I think. So it's very helpful for me, and my team, it's a so small team, it's about 10 people when we started this project. And then Badr and we first trained through these videos and other things, and then we trained over final year students. So they are also very happy to participate, and they are ready to participate in it. And then we make a group of five students and therapists along with them, and then we continue over procedure of this. And really, it's amazing, like Stephen said, that we all think that sensory motor, because I am working on sensory motor facilitation. So everyone think that every sensory motor event is directly related with sensory integration. So now when we start in 3 or 4 years, when we study more and more literatures about sensory integration, and with this EASI project, now I came across that how we differentiate them, and how we get a chance to assess those clients easily, because SIFT is very expensive for for Pakistan. Like we do not have SIFT test, or yes, we are doing on questionnaire sense integration test. So it's very good opportunity for all of us, that we can give a good contribution for that project, and we learn from this project, and hopefully in future, when all the project sum up, then we will get a new test which is easy to access for all.
Thank you so much for all your efforts, and I hope that your story is also inspiring to people in countries where they might feel that, you know, they're a pioneer, that there's someone who's getting things started. You certainly have been that for Pakistan, and I know I feel sorry for anyone who walked by that booth at the World Federation OT meeting, because almost anyone who was interested, we were trying to pull people in, and we were just so lucky that you came by.
Actually, I must add here that we also translate parents' questionnaire in Urdu, and before pandemic, so that is easy for parents to understand what we want to ask from them. But for other tests, as all the therapists and tester can speak and can understand English, so we didn't touch it. So we started to translate it. So it's easy for Pakistani as well.
Well, thank you. I know, I think Marco and I had we just love some of the messages that we get when we got the questionnaire in Urdu. You just feel like, wow, we really are going to touch a lot of populations that maybe we have missed in the past. So thank you for that.
It's so good, because you learn a lot, you learn a lot when you do such a project. And one thing that I would love to add, because, in Portugal, I relate with everything you just said about these challenges and not knowing enough before starting intervention, and intervention that it's, easily taken by SI that is not proper SI. But one thing that I think the EASI contributes a lot is to the body of research in not only globally, but in every country, because it's often in Portugal, we want to do studies, but we don't have any validated tool that we can support or we can measure before and after. And I think the EASI brings these two things. One is people are now trying, and not more than trying, they are actively participating in research because they're helping building a test. And then we now will have a validated tool for Portugal, for Brazil, for Hong Kong, for Pakistan, that is now comparing kids to their peers, typical developing peers, and now we can publish something with that and help building the body of research and evidence on OT and SI. And I think that's huge, just being able to do that from now on. And let me add one more thing, because I don't know if I have more 30 seconds of quiet, and I'm having it right now. So another thing that is so great is that this is, as you guys say, a worldwide project. And it's just amazing, because I'm coordinating Red Cap, and we have 1,800 people. And this 1,800 people are volunteering their time, their effort, it's all volunteer work. And it's amazing how this is building so much and it's bringing so much for OTs, SI, and also families and children. That's amazing. And thank you guys for that. I think it shows the way how we can, without few resources, do so much. And thank you, of course. Thank you, Zoe, Suzanne, Diane, Rosianne, for starting this. It's truly amazing.
Well, our point of view has been that if we don't have a good assessment, we can't adequately identify children and get the right intervention. And if we do, if we have an accessible assessment tool that's rigorous, then we're more likely to get the kids and the families the help that they need. One of the questions while you guys were speaking was about how do we relate the constructs of the EASI with functional activities. And that parent questionnaire that Nigat had mentioned is the Family Life Impact Questionnaire. And this is definitely a passion of ours, which is to have an occupational profile, because we have heard the criticisms that, oh, you're just looking at components or impairment level. And you guys have heard me say this before, I don't buy it. This is not real. But with the Family Life Impact Questionnaire, we are able to ask parents questions about social participation and also activities of daily living, normal things, doing homework, getting a bath, leaving the house, things that we know for many families are challenging. And as a parent of typical children, I know sometimes it's hard to get out the door in the morning. And so we needed to know, like, well, are these really issues for some families? And for some families, it's much more challenging than others to accomplish those daily routines. And that's what Zoe had said, but we will have this questionnaire that gives us the occupational profile, and then we'll be able to do some of the correlations. We've seen it clinically over and over and over again, and also related to outcomes, that these are some of the things that get better. Life gets easier when the children do better. You know, it's easier to get out the door in the morning. It's easier to get the kids ready for bed. It's easier to get dinner on the table. So some of these very usual daily occupations from an OT perspective are the beginning and the end of our process in sensory integration. How are the families and the children be able to be more adaptive and resilient? This is really the main idea of our intervention. It isn't just so that they're feeling things better or they're sitting up better. Yes, those are components that are important, but really what we care about is how that family's quality of life can be improved if integration occurs. So that's just to answer that one question.
And we are excited that we have do have another paper that is about ready to be submitted that examined the ability of the FLIC to differentiate typically developing children from children who had sensory integration concerns in terms of how daily life was going for the families. And the questionnaire looks quite strong, showing very good both reliability and validity on our preliminary testing. Let's see, I see there's a question, the projected date for publication of the EASI, and age group. So the EASI will be, the normative data is being collected on children age 3 years, 0 months to 12 years, 0 months, no, 12 years, 11 months. And we are hoping that future studies will look at use of the EASI with adolescents and adults. Maybe in a minute, Anne-Marie might talk a little bit about one of the PhD studies that is examining use of the EASI with adults. And we are hoping that we can start using the EASI sometime next year in 2021. We are on edge to see what happens with the pandemic and what we can do with the normative data. But our goal is to have enough data by the end of the year to have at least preliminary scoring program available. It may be something that has to be evolving as the data continues to be collected. It's so hard to predict when everyone will be able to get back to testing children.
And maybe an EASI baby. maybe.
Yeah, so that's, yeah, for the next generation, I might have to sit this one out, but we've already heard about the EASI, A, B, and C for adults, babies, and children. Yeah, that's, as Dr. Ayres would say, maybe some of you will be interested in taking this on. That'll be a good project for you to do. We don't have too much time. Anna Marie, do you want to just quickly mention the PhD projects? And I think that's also inspiring. As Marco said, we have a lot of offshoots of research projects that are already brewing and starting.
Yes, thank you, Zoe. The one of Elsa Geyer that I mentioned earlier, she's going to look at a typically developing population, but between high socioeconomic and low socioeconomic, to see how the children differ in performance between high socioeconomic and low socioeconomic on the EASI. And then Tarina Annandale is currently looking at the use of the EASI on adults with psychotic disorders. And her study is progressing very well, and it's very interesting. She's already nearly completed phase 1, and then phase 2 of his study, she will be looking on, does the EASI discriminate between a typical population of adults versus then a adult population with psychotic disorders.
Thank you. And I know she's working with Kath Smith, who I think might be with us today. And yeah, so we are fortunate to have such a capable community with so many different diverse interests and skills that will use these tools. We're very open to collaboration. That's part of our model at Classy partnership. And we've had many students contact us, and there are quite a few current projects going on that are already starting to use the EASI in research, which we can do because we don't necessarily have to have the normative data for some of the research projects that are either looking at the tests themselves in terms of test-retest reliability or inter-rater reliability, or in clinical populations. There's a group in the US that is currently using the EASI with a study for children with autism. So that's really encouraging. Jenny is asking about where we can get information on the FLIC, the FLIQ. That paper's about ready to be submitted, so we hope that will be published in AJOT. It takes quite a while for that process to happen. But the EASI normative data collectors do have access to the FLIC. And one of the nice things, thanks to Marco, is that we've been able to email it to parents in their own language. And again, we have it in many different languages already. Yeah. Okay, we only have a couple minutes. Any other questions? I saw, it looked like some people have hands raised, or is that just a affirmation?
There were a couple of questions in the chat, in the Q&A. What are the implications for applying the EASI to function in the schools, or will it be more medical? See, I don't agree with the dichotomy of school versus medical. So educational, I think these have to be merged for occupational therapists. We are one discipline with one focus, occupation. So the occupation in educational settings versus any other setting. And so we do think it will be very relevant for educational practice, but also for those children, that's sort of a funding kind of issue rather than a content issue.
I think what we could add is that we hope that the reduced cost of the EASI will make this kind of testing more practical for school-based therapists. That's something that we've always heard about the SIPT, is that the cost was a barrier, and not only in schools, but in all over the world. So it's one of the driving forces of this project, that by making a test, as affordable as possible, the costs are really the cost of printing paper and gathering some materials, and then your time as a therapist. But the time is going into treating children. And if you're going to spend, I always say, if you're going to spend hours, days, weeks, months, and years providing intervention, you certainly can invest a couple hours in assessment so that you can be more appropriate in the intervention you're going to plan. There will be training programs. Someone's asking about a certificate process. There will be training programs that probably are similar to the certification programs that have been available over many decades. And we are looking to the ICEASI group, International Council for Education, and Ayres SI for guidance on that. There was one other question in the chat.
One was about Israel. Is Israel included? Yes. And where would they find that?
Israel is definitely on board, a strong team in Israel. Yeah, so if you're from any country, I put my email in the chat box a little bit earlier. If you're from any country and you still would like to jump into the project, please email me and I will connect you with the country lead. And someone asked about something about the SIPT. We might be out of time. I don't know, Suzanne. The SIPT is a great test. Dr. Ayres poured her heart and soul into the gold standard of assessment. We have valued the SIPT, but it's expensive. It's only standardized in the United States, and the norms are quite old. And we don't own the SIPT. The SIPT is owned by a publisher, so we've had little ability to make changes there. So a brave group took the reins in their hands in Finland in 2014 and decided we can do something on our own, and that's what's brought us here today. So I think our time is up again. It goes so fast. I really want to thank all of our panelists and also all of the country leads and the testers, many of whom are participating today. Suzanne, I want to make sure you have time to talk about next week. We only have a couple more episodes of Wind Down Wednesday before the for the series finale. So do you want to share?
Okay, well, yes. Yeah, so next week, again, the next two will be in 10 in the morning, so we can accommodate our international guests. Next week, we will have the leaders in various regions for just taking a look at the growth and development of Ayres Sensory Integration around the world. So I know we have leaders here. We'll have a new group of leaders next week, including Paulo Fernandes and, oh, my brain. It'll be posted. Yeah, and then the next, as Zoe calls it, the season finale will be a 2-hour webinar on July 15th. It's a special edition for Dr. Ayres' celebration of her life and legacy. So we're getting that in shape, and it's going to be so fun. All of these are so fun. So anyway, I just also want to thank you guys from the bottom of my heart for being here with us, and Zoe, everything you've done on the EASI, and Stephen with the forms and 3D printing, and everybody has just really been so generous. So anyway, thank you, everybody.
Yes, thanks to all. We didn't even get to talk much about 3D printing, but that's for next season. Okay, so everyone, stay positive, stay connected, stay safe. We love you all. Thank you. Hope to see you next week.
Okay.
Bye.
Ciao, ciao.
Ciao.
Bye. Bye.